Okay, I'm gonna try to make this under 15 minutes because the more astrological projects I take and research that I do, the less time I find, to do videos. And as a result, the last video that I made, I did it over 2 days because I was just like adding 10 minutes per time. Wherever I could find time, 10 minutes, I do a quick recording. So let's go. Kanye West and Kim K. I've done both of their charts separately or with other people. But of course, there's this ongoing feud between them, and I'm curious about their progression. Now, when we talk about progression, it is not the same as a transit. A transit is a short-term result that you see, whereas a progression is a long-term result. And a transit and a progression work best together and not separately, right? So I want to see what is happening. My goodness, this whole Kanye thing going on. I've already discussed Kanye's progression, Kim K's progression as well separately, but what I had mentioned regarding Kanye, which was very important and critical, was the danger that I was seeing coming to him. And of course, some of the things have come to pass. And of course, I've updated the community page, which you can also check the previous videos to hear what I said. Everything is just coming to pass, right? So now this Synastry was quite normal. I would say normal. By normal, I mean problems and good times. So it was like a normal relationship, nothing crazy, nothing like a butterfly in your stomach type of a vibe, right? But they do have a beautiful trine of their Venuses, right? And of course, any good aspect of the Venuses is indicating, of course, a harmonious affection, like whereby your affection style is matching my vibe type of a way. So they have that beautiful thing. And of course, it also talks about how they viewed, having time, having pleasure. There were no difficulties there in that area. A romance, the romantic style, they were agreeing, with each other. Nothing major, nothing crazy. Now, because both of their Venuses are in fire signs, remember I'm using sidereal, they are in fire signs, you find that their love was big and bold. Everything that they did was just big in the public, like all the media houses had to know. I mean, even with their marriage, for example, it was in Italy, right? They had to fly everyone to Italy. Everyone was just talking about them. It was just a beautiful, big wedding, big celebration, because their Venuses are in fire signs. Kim's Venus is in Leo, and everything that is done in Leo is going to be royalty. It's going to have that regal vibe. And for him, it is in Aries. Aries is about action. Aries is about let's go, let's go harder, let's go now, impulse. Everything is just magnified, right? And being in a fiery sign, you can also see that they are love was also passionate. There was a lot of passion, a lot of physical as well action in between them, because the Aries sign is a physical sign, and Leo also goes well with an Aries sign. So definitely with the Venus. And of course, I do have his Venus semi-sextile to her moon. Now with this thing, there's like there's a misbalance when it comes to this, because when Venus is semi-sextile to anything, it means that, one person is giving more than the other, and the other one is benefiting more in this instant. But when it comes to Venus is the only planet that can withstand a semi-sextile, particularly actually from any angle. Venus remains the only sign that can withstand this and that can feel good, in a semi-sextile. However, all the other planets will fail to manifest any good result in our semi-sextile when it comes to one partner benefiting as the other partner, right? So with this semi-sextile of Venus and Moon, it shows, that of course there would be children, they would be nurturing together, and of course they have 4 beautiful children. And I have his Venus in conjunct her Saturn. Now this is where the problem is. This is where the biggest problem is. When I see squares, I usually say don't worry about squares. Squares are not dire. They're not here to make your life difficult. But when you see an in conjunction, this is when you should say, aha, okay, now we have really something to look at. We need to wake up here, particularly when it's Venus and Saturn, 2 critical points or 2 critical planets for a relationship to survive, right? And I have a semi-sextile again of their moons. With the semi-sextile of their moons, definitely here it is showing that she experienced some stress or some perhaps possibly minor depression. Obviously everything is alleged here. This is synastry. I'm just reading what the planets are telling me. So it's indicating here that there is a high stress that she could have experienced with him, and whereby she would have felt like she can't express her emotions freely with him, and whereby she would have felt like even regarding their kids, there are things that she can't say to him about, and most of the time you'd find that he wants to talk about these things. He wants to discuss the kids. He wants to know how the nurturing is going, but she's withholding things because she feels unsafe. Her emotions feels unsafe, or her nurturing style feels unsafe here. But what I do see is that because his moon is in Aquarius. Now remember what Aquarius is about, right? Remember, I'm using sidereal, so it's going to be different than the tropical astrology. So his moon is in Aquarius, and anything that is in Aquarius, it requires a community-based style. So he's more thinking about the public, the people around, what the people are going to say, how we're going to look to our friends and everything, right? Whereas her moon is in Pisces, is in a water sign, in a nurturing sign. It's all about my kids, the kids, we need to nurture, protect, all of these things, right? And so there is that vibe that is not gelling when it comes to these things. Obviously we're seeing it play out in the open right now. When it comes to his own moon, it's also making an in conjunction to her Saturn, which is another thing that we're seeing play out now. Oh my gosh, it's like their synastry has always told the story of what's going to happen. And I wish I could have done their synastry like a long time ago, but I was busy with my other life, not astrology at the time. But literally everything that is happening in their life is written in the chart. It's written in their synastry. The in conjunction of his moon to her Saturn. This is the nurturing against structure, nurturing against discipline, emotions against work. So everything here is just not gelling. So it means that even in their marriage, they were separate most of the time due to work, certain obligations, right? And of course because of his emotional expressions, right, which were made publicly most of the time, because moon is in Aquarius, in a public place, in a public spot, where all the friends are gathering, all the network social media is gathering, network channels are gathering, right? That's where the moon is about. And moon is not only nurturing, but it is also the expression of that nurturing, the expression of those emotions, the expression of the mind, what is on your mind, that because moon is mind. So his way of expressing it is to the public, to everyone, his friends, everyone within the network must know what goes on in his mind, because the moon is in the place of these gatherings, right? So we do have his Saturn making a beautiful textile to her Saturn here. This is why of course they got married, because of this same sextile, where they are Saturns, they are harmonious towards commitment and what commitment is about, right? So of course we see why they got married. His Saturn is in Cancer, right, in the sign where Saturn does not feel good at all, right? And then we've got her own Saturn, it's in Virgo, right? So of course her Saturn in Virgo is happy, and that's why Kim is always working, always having projects, because the Saturn is in Virgo, so she's gonna want to work, she's gonna want to have commitments that bring work towards her, and not just waste her time with people or being in relationships that don't bring her work and that don't keep her busy. She wants to be busy, she wants to have her day filled in with a plan, with work, what am I gonna do today, everything like that. So I do have his Mars making another in conjunction to her Mars. My gosh, like there is a lot of in conjunctions here. So this is why they are having this boom of explosive back and forth and fights and legalities, because the in conjunctions, they also bring up a lot of legalities. That's the nature of these in conjunctions. Now Mars, in conjunct Mars, definitely when it's war, and the war is gonna go all out, and one has to give, one will have to give, one will have to lose and to rebuild again. And he already started to lose, of course. Some of his rights were cut off regarding the children and the custody of the children, right? Speaking of which, they have another in conjunctions of their sons, and of course here this is ego against ego, and one ego would be crushed, because that's what an in conjunction does, unfortunately. And he's got his son in Taurus. Remember, I'm using sidereal. He is a Gemini ascendant, by the way, but he's got his son in Taurus, and then she's got her son in Libra. Now people with sun in Libra, they tend to be cordial, very humble. They like to have harmonious agreements, they don't like conflict. So but then sun in Taurus is very stubborn. Sun in Taurus wants to have its things its own way. It's just self-driven and towards gaining as much as it can. And of course, Sun in Taurus is about family, so that's why he would have wanted to have a large family, because Sun in Taurus is about that. However, they are in conjunction, and regarding their son, like her son in Libra, you can tell that or it shows that she would have wanted to have a harmonious lifestyle with him, and she would have transformed and changed her stance several times to meet him halfway. However, for him it would have been difficult to amend things or to meet her halfway, right? And this is also concerning their kids, their children, because her son is making an overlay in his fifth house of children, whereby there's also his Uranus. Now it also shows unpredictability and sudden changes in movements and decisions that he would make, maybe erratically as well, because Uranus is all about that, particularly because his one is retrograde, which shows that even if he decides on something today, tomorrow he can change his stance just like that. And it's regarding children. The romance is because of the fifth house where this is all happening, right? So this is why we're seeing all these things regarding their kids and this post-divorce fight, right? So I do have he's a certain conjunct her Rahu and vertex. This is normally beautiful, and it also affirms again why they had gotten married and decided on having kids, because his certain is in their second house of family. So he really wanted to have a family, a stable family whereby he could nurture as well, since it's in Cancer. Right, so he wants to be nurturing, he wants to be hands-on. He feels like it's his obligation to be hands-on, because his certain is indicating that his karma is actually into building a home and having kids and nurturing kids, and this is what he wants to do, and he's here to do actually, because it's karma. So he is destined to have a family, to have a hands-on situation, but due to the inconjunctions that his certain is having, is experiencing, her certain that is experiencing with his Venus, this is where the blockage is, right? However, as I said, his certain is conjunct with her Rahu. Here it gives or it amplifies the desires of having kids. So her Rahu came in and said, okay, I'm going to give you kids, I'm going to give you the family, and it's going to be a different type of a family whereby it's mixed kids, of course, because Rahu is foreign, and due to the vertex, both of their lives changed all around, right? Because that's what a vertex does. So we could look at other things. There's a lot of stuff to consider regarding their Synastry, but what's more worrying, or what has always been a factor and a big factor, it is that his fortune could be money, fortune could be inheritance in terms of skill, in terms of competence, and his Ketu South Node conjunct or making an overlay in her fifth house of children, where she's got her moon. Now this is where the custody and the loss of custody is played out. Highly indicated from the get-go that one of them would lose the custody and would lose the kids or access to the kids, because he's bringing in the Ketu. Ketu is about loss, is about distancing, and it's fortune. Of course, he's lost money already, not a loss, but he's had to pay a high amount of custody allowance, towards her, the moon, the nurturing part here in the 5th house, right, of children. Of course, there has been the loss here of kids, and it shows that in the future, one of the children, at least one of the children, could go back to Kanye, or change side or shift side. At least one kid shift side, and maybe they choose to be with their father when they are at the age of choosing who they want to be with, right? But for now, of course, they still under Kim, fully under Kim, because the law has said so for now. But with this Ketu, it shows that one of the kid at some point would leave Kim's camp and go to Kanye. Okay, so I do have his Pluto and Rahu conjunct in her 11th house, making an overlay in her 11th house with a certain Jupiter, Pluto, Lilith, again facing the house of children, the 5th house. Everything is taking place around children, fighting for children. Pluto is fight of power, fight of position, and with Rahu is going to make fire, like Kanye has been doing now, verbally speaking out, wanting to have access to his kids. And of course, she's going to fight, because this is certain with her own Pluto and with the Jupiter and Lilith. Now with that Lilith, it shows that there's also some people that are involved in advising Kimberly regarding kids, or regarding separating the kids from Kanye here, because the Lilith is going to do the underwork. And with Pluto, of course, the Plutos are playing out the power play here. Certain amongst Plutos, it's going to be dynamic and a long fight, because certain moves slowly, but you can see here with the Jupiter in this house. Normally the Jupiter would be a blessing here, but it's frustrated being here because it's in Virgo. Jupiter in Virgo doesn't feel like it can do its blessing, because it's busy focusing on the legalities, because Virgo is about the legal stuff. So it's busy focusing on the legalities, on the administration, and not on the the positivity that it can usually bring, but it will still bless. But if it's very restricted, it's very frustrated here. I do have his Mercury, Lilith, Jupiter, Sun overlaying in her 7th house. Again, that Sun here, like I've always said, when you have Sun making an overlay and it's in an uncomfortable position, it will create obstacles and fights in a relationship, in marriage. It's always like this, and the relationship ends up in a divorce, or in a separation, or in a disagreement. Even if you're staying in the same house, there's always arguments that are ongoing, particularly with the Lilith here. You could see just a lot of scandals. They were also involved regarding their marriage, or in their marriage, because of his Lilith coming in here. And words could have been said. Okay, even words are being said now, because Mercury is involved in this situation. Ooh la la. And wow, so I do have her Chiron and a Fortune conjunct in his own 11th house, making an overlay here. Chiron is wounding, and they both facing again the 5th house of children. Quite a lot, like opposite, that Uranus there, and her own Sun and Mercury. It's always been destined to be this way. So when I look at what's happening, so he is 47 years old now. She's 44. She's soon to be 45. He's very soon to be 48. And in the progression analysis that I did of him and Bianca, I could see that the age 48 for him, things are getting heated up. Everything is turning up for him, and not in a good way, right? And of course, obviously, I can see it here now, looking at Kim's moon overlaying, in his 10th house, where there's Ketu and Fortune. You can see the embarrassment that is happening publicly, because Ketu will embarrass wherever it sits, and now it's sitting with her moon, and her moon is nurturing his kids, involved, motherhood, parenthood, fatherhood, just the parenting structure. And I do have his progressing Mars, which is causing a stir, causing trouble, and also indicating this whole fight that is happening right now. And it is opposite his progressing Saturn and Jupiter. Now Saturn and Mars are working good when they're in a position. They make danger when they are in a conjunction. However, his progressing Saturn is also conjunct, or is aspecting, his Pluto and Rahu, where I have her Saturn involved, Pluto, Lilith, and Jupiter. So it's quite an explosive thing happening here, fight. And I see this has been the case since I would say since around his 30s, like late 30s. There has been an issue, not necessarily with her, but just in general. So he's been having issues here, and so he's going to be it's just a lot that I'm seeing. Sorry, it's like, there is a huge loss that he's still going to experience, regarding the kids and her. So it's possible that very soon, he loses all contact. But as I said, in the long run, at least one of the kids would return to him, or would choose to be with him. That is for sure. And so in the short term, Kim could be getting the kids, winning the kids, or winning the custody and everything, right? I do see that around 48, he's soon to be 48, like in a month, in 2 months time, 3 months time. I do see, he's progressing Mars at this time will move on to be with the progressing Venus conjunct, and it is going to aspect directly the Ketu and Fortune. So here, as I said, obviously with the Bianca issue around the divorce, that there could be a divorce, or people advising Bianca to leave him. There could be a distance here, definitely, separation, definitely, because Ketu and Venus involved, they always give that in progression. I do have his progressing Ketu also conjunct his 7th house of marriage right now, 7th house of relationship, indicating losses in this regard. I do have his progressing Jupiter, progressing Saturn, aspecting his 4th house. At least, when the progressing Jupiter aspecting the 4th house, it gives some blessing. It gives that some hope regarding, his family structure, that even if things are falling apart, but then he would have to push the legalities, because it's aspecting the 6th house, the 4th house of Virgo, of the Virgo energy. So he would have to push on the legalities. However, the Saturn progressing over there is showing a restriction, showing a structure that is going to be placed, or is already been placed. Actually, I mean, this is public knowledge. I do have his progressing Venus and progressing Mars, conjunction of Mars, that would be aspected by the progressing Saturn, because remember, Saturn has got those three aspects, main aspects. So that also is showing what is going on right now, but not only with Kim, but also with his Bianca, with his wife right now. And for her progressing Mars is aspecting, because remember, Mars also has three aspects. So he's aspecting the 11th house, whereby there's that Jupiter, Saturn, Lilith, Pluto, with his Rahu and Pluto as well. Oh my gosh, just confirming the fight that is happening right now, because she's 44. And I do see that her progressing Venus, is obviously expecting the 7th house, which is already said that there could be somebody that she's dating, but she doesn't want to talk about it. And when she moves like next year, the next year, or the year after, then she could be getting married, getting ready, not married, but getting ready to be married, or to commit, or to publicly announce the person that she could be seeing, or something like that. I do have, because of her progressing Ketu conjunct with his 5th house of children, this is why she gained the custody of the children, of all the children, right? But this is going to continue up until she's like around 57 years old, 56 years old, 55 years old. And this is when then one of the kids could maybe jump camp and and rekindle their relationship with their father, if everything is still good regarding Kanye. So yeah, and because regarding the progression of Kanye and Kim individually, I will link those videos that I made down below. But for now, I just wanted to look at their synastry together, right? And what else? That's it. Right. So for now, I will. Okay, and of course, his own progressing Ketu is aspecting her 2nd house, indicating, of course, a loss to family ties, him being separated from her family. And so this has been quite visible, and this is going to continue until around his mid-50s as well. So around mid-50s, there's gonna be a huge change regarding reconciliation, particularly when it comes to the kids. So around the mid-50s, so this is quite evident. But in the short term, Kim wins because her progressing Ketu is aspecting his 5th house of children, and vice versa. He's got his Ketu conjunct with her moon. That's it. I made it more than 20 minutes, but I'll chat to you soon. Ciao.